Hello, I am Greg, EG.IdrA Fields, and this is an EG replay review. Today we'll be looking at me versus the ladder Terran VVV Sohyun on the map Entombed Valley. See me as the red Zerg top left, and Sohyun as the blue Terran in the bottom right. This is going to just be a pretty standard macro game ZvT. Creep spread is something that I'm very focused on in this game and ZvT in general recently. I've just been I just saw a couple of games of Coca, and it kind of emphasized in my mind how important creep spread actually is, particularly in ZvT, just because Ling Infestor is the popular style right now. And with Lings, the speed bonus that Lings get on creep, they surround armies so much more quickly. It actually just saves you lots and lots of damage that you take usually in trying to engage an army, because you engage so much more quickly. They get less shots before you're in amongst them, and then the tank fire actually helps you out against the Marines. So creep spread, very, very important. And that the way I have dealt with making this more of a priority in my game is I actually just always keep a queen or two on hotkey 098, and whenever I have nothing else to do, I spam those hotkeys. I would go through, I just shift queue a bunch of creep tumors across the middle, and that reminds me to go through and spread the existing creep tumors. So it's a good tactic in itself, but it's also a great way to remind yourself that you're supposed to be focusing on creep spread. That aside, this is a pretty generic macro game. He's opening 2 racks, but it's cross map. I scout it pretty quickly. I see this Marine out in the center at this timing. I know that it is going to be 2 racks. I save up my larva, have Zerglings in production. I'm going to go ahead and get a creep tumor. I know I've seen it early enough, and I saw that he wasn't sending any additional SCVs, so I'm just going to go ahead and focus on the queens and the Zerglings. I don't feel that I'm going to need a spine crawler to hold it off. He does get in this really annoying low position, but it doesn't really matter. It's just not enough. He finishes the bunker, but I have more than enough Zerglings, plus my queens are going to finish. I don't even lose a drone, I don't think, so I held that off pretty effectively. However, he only sent 2 SCVs, and I believe it was only a 12-14, perhaps a 12-13 racks, so not a big economic commitment. We see his command center's already coming down. He's in pretty good shape economically. Not a big deal. Put down my spine crawler because I see that he does still have a lot of Marines out in the center. It could potentially be a Marine SCV all-in. I didn't get an Overlord into position to see the expansion just yet, so that's a pretty big problem for me. So send these 2 scouting Zerglings in. I see that he's adding these 2 barracks at this timing, and I know it's not going to be an all-in. There's no way he's getting a 5th and 6th barracks right now, so those must be his 3rd and 4th. And they're at such a late timing that I know he has already put down a command center before them, so I know that I'm reasonably safe at this point in the game. He does continue to mass Marines. That can be pretty annoying, but I know it's nothing to really worry about. I got my spine crawler, I have 2 additional queens, I have a bunch of Zerglings. I know that I'm pretty safe. I see that he is being aggressive, so I know that he could continue to add Marines, perhaps send all his SCVs with a little delayed all-in, so I put down that 2nd spine crawler, just in case. However, he goes in too far on creep and engages. My Zerglings are able to clean up all of those Marines, so it's really good for me. This gives me an opportunity to go and put down a 3rd command center, just kind of, a 3rd hatchery at my expansion. And that's something to always keep in mind. Whenever you win a battle, almost always in any matchup, whenever you win a battle, that's a great opportunity to go ahead and expand, just because your opponent lost a bunch of units. He's going to have to rebuild those, and it takes a while to rebuild that army. And until he does, he's not really going to be able to put any pressure on you, unless it was an incredibly close battle. Although, as I say that, he does get a nice group of Marines in here, and he manages to get into this really hard-to-engage location back here behind the minerals. So I have to make banelings, but it's not going to be in time to actually save that hatchery. So generally speaking, that was a good strategic decision. You should be able to hold that. I wasn't. I let him get into a good position, so I lost that hatchery. However, he lost all the Marines. And in making that many Marines for that long, we see he's just not getting his factory, he's just not getting his engineering bay. He's really, really sacrificed his tech. He only had the 1 tech lab even, and he's just now getting stim. So he sacrificed a lot for all of that early aggression, and I'm now getting up to infestation pit. I already have 3 hatcheries in production. I got the double upgrades going, and I'm rebuilding that 4th hatchery very quickly. Plus, as I said, the creep spread's on the way out. It's already pretty significant, and the important thing is it's going in all directions. We have creep troopers coming out for both halves of the center for this path, which is really important because that's where you're going to expand upon. That's where you're going to need defensive capabilities, potentially. And I should have a creep trooper coming down here. I believe I put one down later. It's not up quite yet. I poke in, see if I'm going to be able to be aggressive. I realize that I'm not, and those Marines are going to be able to fight off Zerglings just fine. He also has a wall in. It's going to make it much more difficult to engage. I'm going to be funneled through here. So I just back off, put up another hatchery. Again, I realize that he's going to be defensive, so by the fact that he has taken this third base, he's setting up a defensive position. So I know that I'm going to be able to hold this off. I know that he's not looking to pressure me anytime soon. He's not investing resources into aggression, into building up a big army or a high-tech army. So it's a great time to go ahead and put down another base, as well as to tech out and get my hive on the way. Also Spire. For a little while, I was focusing more on quick ultras in ZvT, get the ultras out really quickly. And I think there is still a place for that. If you're playing against a very aggressive opponent, I believe ultras are the better decision when you are playing defensively, as they come out quicker, they're more mobile, and if your opponent is not in a great defensive position, the ultras are much more efficient, especially because you can often get them on creep, or you can set up a better flank. You have reinforcements more quickly. But generally speaking, especially against a defensive opponent, and he seems to be playing pretty defensively, Broodlords are the much better siege breaker, the much more efficient unit in general. Broodlord Infestor, obviously, that's what everyone in every race complains about. It's just very, very powerful. Here, as I always say, static defense, utmost importance when you are playing a ground unit-based style. If you don't have mutas flying around, you need something else to deal with that deal with the drop harass. And that drop was pretty well nullified. Actually, I forgot to put a third drone back on gas. That's a blunder by me. Something you should always pay attention to that's so important, because that's a pretty big fraction of my gas income, and that's something that always gets messed up by drops. Good Terrans will focus down those drones, but they're also one of the first targets. As his Marines are standing here, the drones are exposed. So that's something to watch out for. Otherwise, machine will yell at you. And here, just a massive fungus he tries to move out. That was just bad play by him. I don't know why he did that. It was just a blunder. Bunch of Marine kills. However, if we look at the supplies, because you can see I'm saving up for the Broodlord tech, I'm focusing mostly on gas units. That seems kind of bad. A lot of players will look at it and say, oh, he has 25 minerals, that's terrible macro. That's really, really inefficient. But Zerglings aren't going to do much at this point. I'm not going to be able to attack into this with Zerglings. So really, there's no reason to spend those resources, especially given I have so much larva pooled up, that if I see an attack coming out, I can instantly make them anyway in order to hold it off. So instead, just bank that and go for the more efficient units, save up my resources, and only use them if I absolutely have to. It's just a much more efficient way to play if you're not intending to attack. Smart little move by him, dropping, catching that new expansion before static defense is up. But really, at this point, I just have such a huge economy. I'm starting to get my air upgrades. I have the Ultra Cavalry on the way. I have the Broodlord Corruptor Infestor army. Clearing up this drop, just establishing more and more bases. And as I said before, I haven't really been focusing on it in this replay, but if we look at the creep spread, it's just absolutely everywhere. The entire center is covered in creep. If he moves out, he has to sit and wait forever for tumors to die. Otherwise, he's engaging on creep, which you never want to do. Here, the Zerglings coming around immediately because of that. Not the greatest example of how effective creep is, but, you know, creep's really awesome, and I have a lot of it this game, so focus on that. Other than that, just normal. This is pretty much how ZvT's look once he takes control of the game. I'm going to keep crowning on him with Broodlords, and then once he starts making a bunch of Vikings and getting the Viking upgrades and whatnot, switch to Ultras and just go ahead and go and run him over. Here he is cleaning up the Broodlords, so that's not really a huge deal. With some Corruptors to pick off the Vikings anyway. And here the Ultras are out. I have a pretty good Infestor count already. More and more, Zerg play has been focusing on the Infestors instead of the Broodlords and Ultralisks. Just people are realizing how efficient and how effective Infestors are against absolutely everything. The Ultras and the Broodlords are just there to force engagements and to add a little extra DPS kind of tank for the Infestors. And the Infestors actually does a lot of the damage. So here I have a relatively small Infestor count. In a lot of ZVPs and ZvTs recently, especially with foreigners, particularly Stefano, you'll see him actually get up to like 20 plus Infestors. It looks kind of ridiculous, but it's very, very effective. And to me, it feels more efficient than the very heavy Broodlord or Ultralist army. It's also much more versatile. Obviously, you don't get caught with a bunch of Vikings picking off the remaining Broodlords or something of that sort. Here, just rallying in units. Producing more Zerglings than I have to. We see I could afford more Ultras. However, you don't want to have too many Ultras. I feel that if you have 5 or 6 Ultras, that's all you really want in your army. They don't stack particularly well. They're very clumsy units. And they're just not particularly good. It's great to have a few for the additional DPS and for the tanking, but too many is not good. You really want to focus on Ling and Fester, even once you have the Ultra Tech out. That was an EG replay review. If you enjoyed that, please go check us out at evilgeniuses.net for other similar content. Thank you for watching.